Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. HTM here with a new build video for the Elder Scrolls Online. That's right, it's time for the Hybrid Necromancer, this time combining Dual Wield and Fire Staff abilities with the equally impressive Necromancer toolkit and the powerful yet simple rotation. This build is going to be great if you really want to test the limits of your class, or if you want to play something interesting and unique. Hybrid builds are more powerful than ever this patch, and they're definitely a lot of fun to play. So that being said, let's jump right into the build. Alright everybody, we are back on the Necromancer with an updated hybrid build for the Elder Scrolls Online. It's going to be great for solo, for group, for playing with a companion. However you want to play this setup, it's going to be very fun to play, very unique as well. Let's go ahead and jump into the buff stats here. Taking a look at our character sheet, you can see our resources are fairly evenly split. We've got about 25k max magicka and 25k max stamina. That's the way that you want to go there. 29,000 max health is looking very good. Decent recoveries as well. All those are over 1,000. About 3,700 weapon and spell damage. That's without major brutality or sorcery yet. We'll get those actively in combat. Plus with our backbar glyph, you're sitting at over 5k for both of those damage stats. And then also sitting at a very comfortable, very solid 59% weapon and spell critical. So looking pretty good overall on the stats. As far as the attributes, this will definitely depend on your race. Like I said, with a hybrid setup like this, what we're trying to do is just evenly distribute our stats as much as possible. So for this case, I'm using 26 magicka and then 38 into stamina. Again, that's going to depend mostly on your race passives. As far as consumables, we've got Bewitched Sugar Skulls. It's going to be a great food option, just giving you as much max resources as possible. Of course, we have the Thief Mundus Stone for the extra critical chance. And a lot of juicy buffs here. We'll talk about how we get those in just a couple of minutes. Other consumables, as far as potions, we want to use Tri-Stat potions on most hybrid builds, again, just to get the most resources back. It's going to help a lot with sustain. And then for the race, I want to try something a little bit different here. It's actually working very well for increased damage, and that is going to be the Khajiit. So Khajiit's actually very good for hybrids. I've talked about this in my previous builds. You get all your recoveries, you get all your max stats, and then of course you get bonus critical damage and critical healing, which is very powerful on the Necromancer class. I'll say Necros, especially when your target is in execute range, you can get some of the highest crit chance in the game, making that extra crit damage really pay off. I think this is a great way to go on this build. Of course, you have less damage as far as like weapon and spell damage. If you want that to be the focus of your build, then maybe Dark Elf would be your best bet, or High Elf or Orc, something like that. I think that covers the basics though, so let's jump over into our gear sets next. Starting with our first 5-piece set, come with the Medusa set on this build, and a couple of reasons. Number one, it's a great set for hybrids. Now in the Deadlands DLC, this gives you crit chance instead of just spell critical. So it's good for stamina and magicka builds equally, which of course will be great for hybrids. And it also gives you a free buff here, Minor Force. Now I found on the Necromancer as I was testing it out, trying to build a hybrid, I did try a few different things. One of the most difficult things about the Necro class though is the buff management. And especially on the hybrid, just having a limited amount of skills, amount of bar slots. Getting things passively through sets is definitely helpful. So the fact that we get a very powerful buff here, Minor Force, that's 10% bonus critical damage at all times, just from this set is actually pretty nice. We don't have to worry about running Trap or Channel Acceleration for this buff, so it is nice. And keep in mind, this is a heavy armor set, which isn't ideal in terms of damage, right? So a couple ways you could run this. You could run weapons and jewelry, or you could do 2 pieces on the body and jewelry, which is what I've decided to go for here. So the heavy chest, the heavy legs, both divines, both with the Tri-Stat enchants, and then 3 pieces of jewelry here. So I've got the necklace and 2 rings. I've got Bloodthirsty as the trait. I definitely recommend transmuting these if you can. That's going to increase your damage a lot. Then we've got 1 magicka recovery and 1 spell damage and 1 weapon damage. Second 5-piece set is another powerful option called Kinra's Wrath. This is also a great set for damage. You can see we've got weapon and spell damage, critical chance, weapon and spell damage again, And then dealing enough attacks with light or heavy attacks, it's going to grant you those stacks of Burning Heart, giving you Major Berserk, which increases your damage done by 10 seconds. You also give your allies Minor Berserk. So this is just a great option for, increasing the overall damage of this build. As a hybrid setup, damage is going to be obviously a little bit lower than a pure DPS build. So as many things as you can stack on your character to improve that damage, especially if you want to jump into a group for a pug dungeon or something, or you want to play with a companion, this set is really good for just increasing your overall DPS. Now, it is a medium armor set, so I think this plays very well on the body. In fact, running 5 pieces on the body here. So we've got the feet, hands, waist, shoulders, and the helmet here. Of course, all divines if you can get it. And then I am running multiple tri-stat enchants here. You can see this is another thing that's great to do with hybrids. It gives you sort of the same amount of magicka and stamina as if you split your enchants, like half magicka, half stamina. But it gives you extra max health. You can see the third line there. 477 max health. So at the end of the day, if you run 7 of these, you get something like 2,000 or 2,500 extra max health, which is very good, especially if you want to play solo or if you want to run with a companion. It just increases your survivability immensely. So definitely recommend it. If not, just split your glyphs in half, magicka and stamina. That would be the way to go. Now talk about some alternate gear sets that I've looked at for this build in a minute. But as you can see, we're not running a monster set here, which is interesting. And what I've started to find with these hybrid builds is some of the arena weapons are very effective. Now, you may not have these, and so I will give you some other options in a minute. But sets like the Vadashran's Dagger. This buffs your Hidden Blade. It's basically a dual-wield skill that we're going to use as one of our spammables by up to 250% more damage to targets based on their missing health. It also gives stamina back, which again, sustain is always kind of an issue with hybrids. Anything that you can get with sustain built into it, which these arena sets often do have, it's going to be really powerful. So definitely recommend you check this out. It's from the Vadashran Solo Arena. You can complete this on normal if you want. It's much easier. Of course, you'll get the normal version of the weapon, which still gives you that powerful, 2-piece bonus effect. You just won't have the bonus critical chance. It's really not that big of a difference. And of course, another powerful arena weapon that you should be getting your hands on is the Maelstrom Inferno Staff. This does great damage. It also means that our light and heavy attacks do additional damage thanks to that proc on the back bar. As long as they're standing in Wall of Elements, which we'll be using, you will get that bonus to your light and heavy attacks, which is very powerful. So this is kind of my preferred way to run this setup. Arena weapons combined with Kinra, combined with Medusa. It's a very powerful hybrid setup. Some other options that I was exploring, which are also quite good. Rattlecage is another heavy armor set. This is actually a base game set, so it's fairly easy to get. This would be a great starting point for a hybrid build like the Necromancer because it gives you both of your major buffs for free. That's Major Brutality and Sorcery, giving you that bonus 20% weapon and spell damage at all times. This is good as well. I just figured the damage was a little bit lower on this since it's not really a specialized damage set. It gives you bonuses for damage, but you can get those bonuses through skills, which is what we'll look at next. But definitely a good starter set to consider. I'll have more options in the written guide on my website. Definitely check out the link in the description if you want more information on those. With that being said, I think we can jump into the skills next, starting with our front bar dual wield, and I'll show you a couple different options for primarily damage. So if you are like with a companion tank or you're in a group, that's what I would recommend for damage. We got Mystic Siphon on the front bar. Great skill from the Gravelord skill line. Not only does this do fantastic damage, you can see 16k shock damage. That's AoE damage over time, by the way, very powerful. It also gives you resources back. Remember we talked about sustain on the hybrid builds is usually the biggest challenge. So getting that extra magicka back for the duration of the tether is very nice. You also get bonus 3% damage on the front bar, which is not bad either. Next, we've got Blighted Blast Bones, so that's also from Gravelord. That's your second ability here. We went with the Stamina Morph here. You can actually go with either morph since you are a hybrid setup. Really what you want to do is you want to kind of balance your magicka and stamina skills. So you're casting, a similar amount of each type just to make sure you're not draining one resource much more than the other. So gone with the Stamina Morph basically just to balance our resources better. This is great for damage. It also creates the corpse on the ground, which you can then use your Mystic Siphon on. So that's a good combo right there. Now we have Inner Light on the front bar as well. And why is this a good skill, especially for a hybrid? Well, this comes from the Mage's Guild. First ability here. This basically gives you free stats for having it slotted on your front bar. Not only do you get Max Magicka, you also get Major Prophecy. So that's about 12% bonus spell critical. This is really good just to get your crit chance as high as possible on this build. And it's easy. You don't have to do anything. Slot it on your front bar and you're good to go. Now, our other damaging skill on the front bar is going to be another stamina skill. This comes from Wield. And this is called Shrouded Daggers, the last skill from the skill line. Now, not only is this very powerful with the arena weapon that we just looked at, but it gives us tons of extra effects. And when you have a hybrid build, you're limited on bar space, especially as a Necromancer. You want to get as many bonus effects tied onto your skills as possible. You can see for Shrouded Daggers, we get an off-balance proc if the enemy is casting. And more importantly, we get Major Brutality. Remember we talked about you could get that if you ran Rattle Cage as a set, but we can also get it equally through a skill like this. So Major Brutality, that's 20% bonus weapon damage. That's very important. I will also need the Magicka version of this. Major Sorcery, we'll show you how you can get that on the back bar. But yeah, Shrouded Daggers, very good spammable DPS skill. It times in very well, I've found, with the Blast Bones. You can basically cast one of these skeletons, have a chance to throw 2 daggers or so, and then your skeleton pops. You can throw it again, do another couple daggers, or 1 dagger and 1 Mystic Siphon, go back to Blast Bones. So it times out very well in the rotation. Last normal ability, let's talk about Camouflage Hunter. This comes from the Fighters Guild skill line. That is your second to last ability here. And this is another one of those passive skills, just like Inner Light, where we're getting a lot out of this. We're actually getting a lot out of this. We're getting Fighters Guild passives, which we'll talk about in a minute. We're getting Major Savagery. So that's the alternate critical buff, so 12% weapon critical. We're getting Minor Berserk for 5 seconds, as long as we're attacking the enemy from the side or behind. And that's all for free. You don't have to waste any resources at all for this. You just have it slotted on your front bar and you get all those nice buffs. In terms of the front bar ultimate, many options here. You could go with a pure damage ultimate. Something like Flawless Dawnbreaker would be great. Of course, you could go with the Necro ultimate, Pestilent Colossus. For pure solo, it's going to be nice to have Temporal Guard. This comes from Psijic Order, by the way. The reason why this is nice is it gives you another passive buff. Minor Protection reduces your damage taken by 5%. Plus you get an extra shield here when you block. It's also pretty nice. So for a purely solo version of this build, that's what I would recommend. Let's go ahead and swap to the back bar now, which is our Inferno Staff. And here's where we get our Magicka damage. In fact, most of these skills on the back bar are Magicka based. Front bar is more of the stamina stuff. So we've got Degeneration. This comes from the Mage's Guild. It's your second ability there. Great single target dot, by the way, especially on the Necromancer. But this is where you get Major Sorcery, so that's your 20% spell damage buff. We get Major Sorcery from Degeneration, Major Brutality from Shrouded Daggers. We need both of those buffs active all the time. Great single target dot, like I said. Just make sure you maintain this in your rotation to keep that buff going. Then we got Unstable Wall. That's from the Destruction Staff skill line. Second ability here, of course, is going to be important for our arena weapon on the back bar. The Maelstrom Staff gives you bonus light and heavy attack damage. Solid damage over time. Plus, you get the infused back bar glyph, which is very, very important on a hybrid. It gives you about 600 bonus weapon and spell damage just for having the right glyph. Very important there. Next back bar skill is another damage over time. We've got from the Gravelord skill line, Unnerving Boneyard. This is frost damage and an AoE plus Major Breach. That's another debuff that we're going to want, especially on the solo build. That reduces all your enemies' physical and spell resistance. Very important. Plus having a corpse on the ground will cause this to do 50% more damage. Next up, Spiked Bone Shield. This is what I'm running just as sort of a defensive option on the back bar. Plus I thought it really fit with the Necromancer theme. This comes from the Undaunted skill line. That's your second to last ability. You can see I'm getting about 10k shield on this for 6 seconds. That's based on your max health. So again, having the extra health on the Khajiit, on the Necromancer with your tri-stat glyphs. This is actually a very good sized shield for, a hybrid setup. We'll talk about how you can buff this through champion points as well. And another important skill for survival is going to be Spirit Guardian. This is going to be your main heal. And this comes from Living Death. It's your second to last ability there. Gives you healing over time plus 10% damage reduction. Very important there. And then our main damage ultimate, Pestilent Colossus. You can go with either morph. Pestilent Colossus gives you a little bit more damage. The Frost Colossus gives you the stun. Both of those options are very good. So this is kind of my more balanced solo setup. I would say if you want a little bit more survival, you can actually slot, instead of Mystic Siphon, another great option is from Bone Tyrant. It's this skill called Ruinous Scythe. And this gives you another chance to proc off balance, plus health back for every target that you hit. This is great, especially for fighting multiple enemies, big groups, tougher bosses with a lot of adds. You might consider slotting this. You'll have less damage, but much greater survivability because of the healing. So that's one way you could go. And another thing you might consider, if you wanted more damage, let's say you're in a group where you have a companion tanking for you, could get rid of your shield and then just slot another dot. Something like Skeletal Arcanist from the Gravelord skill line would add even more damage to this build. So let's go ahead and check it out. Quick rotation on a boss just so you can see how it works. So very simple, buff with your back bar, shield and your guardian. Apply those back bar dots. And then it's Blast Bones, 2 daggers. Blast Bone, dagger, tether, Blast Bone, bar swap. Again, Blast Bone and 2 daggers. Blast Bones, dagger, and a tether. Blast Bones and swap. When your ultimate's ready, go ahead and pop that. And that's pretty much it. Just make sure you maintain your dots. Maintain your heal. You can see the shield is pretty optional. I'm not taking too much damage yet, so I'm kind of just not using the shield as much. I probably could have used the Arcanist for more damage. Make sure you keep your tether up. That's a lot of damage, plus sustain. And I'll just do some daggers to finish this. Remember those daggers, if you have the arena weapon, they do more damage the lower health your target is. So there you go. Pretty simple rotation. Basically as simple as you can make it on a Necromancer, which is obviously a little bit more of a challenging class in that case. But let's talk about passives, because these do make a difference, especially on a hybrid. Gravelord, you're going to get a lot out of these. You get reduced cost from reusable parts. That's great. Death Knell, you get bonus critical strike chance, which is basically more damage. Dismember, you get more penetration, and Rapid Rot gives you the bonus dot damage. So all of these are very good. Make sure you unlock those as soon as possible. Bone Tyrant, we've got some good passives here as well. The main one you'll want here, Last Gasp, gives you a bonus 1250 health. That's why we can have almost 30k health on this build. It's very good. And then Living Death, these are more of our healing focused passives. Corpse Consumption is great for the bonus ultimate. Also Undead Confederate, I forgot to show this in the stats, but you actually get 200 bonus to all of your recoveries by having either a Blast Bones, Mage, or Spirit Mender active. And of course we will have the Mender, which is basically the Guardian, active all the time for self-heals. So that's important. Of course, you will want your Dual Wield and your Destruction Staff passives, all those unlocked. We're using a combination of medium and heavy armor on this build. Now, the best ones for damage are going to be here in the medium armor, like Dexterity. Windwalker is good for the cost reduction, and then Agility for the weapon and spell damage. 10% bonus there for having 5 pieces of medium. That's definitely good. Heavy armor, these are more of your survivability passives, so you get extra armor, extra health recovery, of course, extra sustain and extra healing. So those are not bad as well. In terms of guild skills, we are using, quite a bit here depending on your setup. The main ones would be like Mage's Guild. Since we're running Inner Light, you can get bonus Max Magicka, bonus Magicka Recovery. That's a good one. And of course, Psijic Order from Temporal Guard. We will want the Concentrated Barrier passive unlocked. This gives you almost a 6k shield for free on the front bar anytime you block. That's very helpful as well. Of course, if you have Undaunted, you can get some bonus max stats here from Undaunted Metal, up to 4% on this particular setup. And then we already talked about your racial skills. And then the other one you'd want would be Alchemy Medicinal Use to make those potions last as long as possible. The other thing that's a little bit complicated when it comes to hybrid builds is going to be champion points. Green tree, though, is pretty basic. I don't really change this much. For my builds, the main slotted stars, which you guys probably know already, I recommend Steed's Blessing for the movement speed. Then up here, Treasure Hunter, as well as Rationer and Liquid Efficiency. Those are my 4 slotted stars. On the blue tree, this depends on how you're going to play this build. If you're going to play more of a solo-focused setup, what I would recommend is start here with Precision, come into Extended Might, pick up Piercing, then get Deadly Aim, Mastered Arms, Thaumaturge, and lastly, Fighting Finesse. Now, if you're playing with a companion tank or with a group with a tank who can turn enemies away from you, then I would replace one of these, maybe either Thaumaturge or Mastered Arms, with Backstabber as well. Remember, we have pretty high crit chance on this build, so getting a bonus 15% critical damage is actually quite strong. Now, those are your main offensive passives. The other things you'd want would be like Tireless Discipline, Eldritch Insight. These are just for the stat gains. But then, especially for playing solo, you want this unlocked. Quick Recovery into Preparation. You can see with just 20 points in Preparation, that's 10% damage reduction. That's the same damage reduction that you get from your Spirit Guardian. So you're basically doubling that through your CP passives here. Then you can pick up Hardy and Elemental Aegis if you have enough points. Speaking of extra points, if you are a little bit higher range, you can pick up then Battle Mastery, Mighty, Flawless Ritual, and even War Mage. All of this stuff will actually be beneficial on the hybrid. Since you are using, both Magicka and Stamina abilities, it actually makes sense to unlock both sides of this tree for a hybrid build. Last but not least, the red tree. These are more defensive stats, so we'll start with, Boundless Vitality, Fortified, Rejuvenation. All 3 of these are recommended. 4-star, again, is really up to you, what type of content you're doing. If you are, let's say, going through a dungeon, grinding experience, something like that, then you'll want probably Bloody Renewal for your 4th slotted star. This gives you 1,500 stamina back per kill. If you're focused more on solo bosses, maybe world bosses, something like that, then I recommend Bastion. Bastion does increase your shield from Bone Shield by 15% when you have that maxed out. It's actually very good. So those are the basics as far as champion points. As usual, I will have in the written guide breakdowns for 300, 600, 900, and 1200 champion points. If you'd like to see those, check the link in the description for more info on that. Last but not least, we can check out the outfit style if you're curious on this particular setup. Under armor styles, I believe this is mostly medium pieces, and the style here is called the Assassin's League. So that's from the Gold Coast. That's going to be on most of the body pieces, like I said, chest, hands, legs, feet. The only thing that's really different is the helmet here, the headpiece. That's going to be the Heavy Dramothra style. All right, everybody, with that said, that's going to wrap up this brand new hybrid Necromancer build for the Elder Scrolls Online. Hope you guys enjoyed this one and you found it informative. Of course, if you did, do me a favor and crush that like button. It definitely helps out the channel, helps this video spread throughout YouTube, so it's much appreciated. And I'm curious, now that I have done all 6 classes as hybrid builds for ESO, which class do you think is the best for a hybrid setup? Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. And of course, if you have any questions at all on the build, make sure to check out our written guide. Link is in the description. Over there, we'll have alternate gear setups, alternate recommended skills. I'll have a companion build, as well as the full champion point breakdown for CP 300, 600, 900, and 1200. So there is something there for everyone. Finally, if you'd like to support the channel further, consider joining our YouTube membership. We have a lot of great benefits for members, including early access to videos, members-only live streams, and our exclusive members-only build library. We're building up a great community here on YouTube, and it would be awesome if you considered joining. If that sounds good to you, just click on that join button down below for more information. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you're doing well, stay safe out there, and I will see you around in the next video.